Hey, welcome to the Finding Dad podcast. Today's guest is my dear friend Robert Cardenas. Now, I know we all have different dad stories, and they affect us all different ways. But what I love about Robert's story is that Robert was raised by a very accomplished, big figure of a man, a big life. That brings another set of complications that I'm not really familiar with or aware of, but Robert is. And so I really think you're going to enjoy him, his insights, and his journey. Hey, welcome to the Finding Dad podcast. Today we have a special friend of mine, a special guest, Robert Cardenas. Welcome to the Finding Dad podcast.
Thank you, Mark.
It's an honor to have you here.
No, it's my honor, truly.
How long have we known each other?
Oh,
5 years of marriage. And
we were married in 87, so before that.
85, 86.
Probably, yeah.
Long
Somebody
time.
do the math. I'm not good at math.
Pre-marriage, pre-kids.
Yeah.
Now the kids are out of the houses.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of life together and seen each other grow up.
Yeah.
And it's an honor and privilege to have you here again.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And here we are talking about dads.
Yeah.
As dads. Mm-hmm. Kind of wild. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I met you, there was some challenge with your dad.
Oh, yeah.
Some distance.
Yeah.
As was mine. Do me a favor. Sum up your dad now, not then, your feelings of your dad in 10 words or less. Not that I'm counting.
No, thank you for that. My dad was a rare individual, a guy who came from basically nothing. 7 brothers and sisters, living on a dirt floor in the High Plains desert, and was driven by the love of his mother. Honestly, it was the love of his mother that drove his life. And always wanted to serve not just her, but others. Mm-hmm. That was him.
Really?
It was about service. Yeah, he absolutely was.
Was he close to his dad?
His dad's, for perspective, his name was Heliodoro, okay? And which is, I think, another name for the devil. His nickname was Slim. He had a lot of talent, but he was mean.
Okay.
He was mean. In fact, my father was the youngest, and when he was born, was pretty frail. And growing up in the Southern California deserts, as they did, and he was a rancher, his dad, he really thought my father was an imposition, and pushed him away quite a bit, to the extent where that's how he came so close to his mother. So he grew up a hard life, but a happy one.
Yeah.
To him, joy was getting on his horse and riding out into the desert for days and weeks at a time, and just living on the land.
So he was a horseman.
He was a calf roper. In fact, I have his lasso in my office. I have his spurs. I have his Stetson hat, all in my office. We had a saddle for the longest time, but those are sort of things you can't just keep.
I learn something every time that I sit and talk to guys. I had never known that. I knew him as a hero, an officer.
His family crossed the border in 1923, and he was born in El Paso, Texas, which gives me sort of a perspective about today's immigration environment what ifs. The what ifs. Yeah, my dad.
And what era?
1923 is when they crossed. So he was born there in El Paso, and then later his dad brought them to the high desert. We bought some property in what's now the barrios of Oro Grande, which is a town outside of Victorville, which is outside of Barstow, which is outside of San Bernardino. It's outside of...
It's outside.
It's outside. And it's literally a dirt road where, in fact, family still owns that house.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I think one of my distant cousins probably still has it.
Have you seen it?
Well, I lived there for a year.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. My dad, as you brought up his hero status, he was a... retired lieutenant colonel, but in his first tour in Vietnam, he didn't want my mom to be alone or us somewhere else. And as far as tour duties go, you're not allowed to stay on a post while you're overseas. So we went and stayed with his sister, my Aunt Eve, who was the only sibling who actually lived there through her entire life, from the time she was born till when she passed, not too long ago. So he. I'm sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
But he grows up there, and the war breaks out, and
the war being World War II.
World War II, right? And he barely speaks English. and he joins the military, and they make him a forward observer. He spends a year in Australia training, finally gets into the action, and he was one of the first expeditionary forces to go to Japan after they dropped the bomb.
Wow.
I remember earlier we were talking before we got started here that his letter writing skills were immense. In fact, he always wanted to write a book.
Really?
Never got to it. Mm-hmm. I probably should have brought that copy of the book that my sister actually finally did, called The Cardenas Family Story, that she published. It's all just for us.
Yeah.
But so he goes into the service. He's a forward observer, can't speak very good English, but he's out there telling people where to drop a bomb or where to go and where not to go, that sort of thing. Comes back after that, and then Korea breaks out. He reenlists. He's in a platoon where his platoon leader is put down, and as what happens in the military, he gets pushed up. He gets a battlefield commission. That's where he got his officer status. Didn't even have a GED at that moment in time. They sent him to the War College at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where he goes to college there, gets his GED. So then Vietnam breaks out, and so he puts. We stay with. That's where I was going with that. We stay with my aunt for a year there in the Southern California
During
desert.
Vietnam.
During Vietnam.
So 75,
Oh,
73?
No. This was 66, 67.
66?
Vietnam War.
I know.
Well, the early
No,
parts
I was
of it-
over at 76.
Yeah, it was done
So
by
70.
then.
Yeah, 70.
Well, we were there 66 after coming back from Ethiopia.
Gotcha.
That's where the tour duty before that was there. And so we spent a year there with my aunt and living in the desert life. It was great. We'd walk down the dirt road to the Mojave River and chase tadpoles, and it was a lot of fun.
Your sister. You and your sister.
And my older brother,
older brother.
who when you talk about dynamics of dads, I'll never forget the day. In fact, I can kind of think about it now as we're talking about it. I'm at San Jose State, struggling in college because I didn't really want to be there or know why I wanted to be there, other than my dad wanted me to be in the service, and I was an ROTC cadet, a failed one at that later on. But I have an older brother who was the apple of my dad's eye in the sense that he thought he was going to be the guy that goes into the military. In fact, my brother wanted to go to West Point himself. Short story about my dad, and I think it's some of the things that I think about. We would have parties in Ethiopia when my dad was stationed there, and we went with him. We were stationed in Ethiopia for a year with him. And when we would have these officers and such over, he would introduce us kids, myself, my sister, and my brother. And it was my brother was going to be, an officer and defend democracy. And my sister was going to be a princess. And this is my son, Bobby, because that's what I went by my whole life till I decided to go by Robert. Here's Bobby. He's going to be a bum.
No.
I swear. And my mom would say, yeah, but he's going to be the best bum ever.
You're kidding.
No.
What did that do to you? What did that?
Well, at the time I was a kid, and to me it was like, okay, fine. Where's my next bologna sandwich coming from?
Right.
It didn't really, impact me at the moment in time.
Right.
But later on in life, I tried to fulfill that sort of thing for him, and didn't work out for me.
That sort of thing being
ROTC.
Yeah.
I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for my 6 weeks of basic training. And there I won a scholarship for college, full scholarship, plus I had a little stipend too. There was I think 1,500 cadets. They gave away 70 of them.
Wow.
When I got one. Who knew?
Wow.
And I come back to school. I go to San Jose State, spend a year there struggling to figure out what the heck I'm going to do there. Then I go to Fort Lewis, Washington for my advanced training. And this was probably the beginning of my brother, my dad and I having issues. Well, it was the issue. So I'm in Fort Lewis, Washington. I meet up with this guy. His name's Dave Reese. We're still friends today, but he was much smarter than I was at all levels. He got into the finance corps, retired after 30 years. He's a lieutenant colonel, all that business. So anyway, I'm at Fort Lewis, Washington, and I meet up with him, and I'll never forget it, the last night we were there before they let us go the next morning after being there for 6 weeks. And I had high ratings throughout the time I was there. Everybody thought, oh, this guy's it. And, He's infantry, the whole bit. And I get back that night before, my buddy Dave, who had drove his car there, he was from Colorado, and he says, "Hey, let's check out the night before. Let's get on the road. I'll take you home to San Jose. Let's just leave." So we told all the guys, "Hey, don't mention that we're leaving." We take off. The next morning, our captain, who's a real Army captain, comes in. "Hey, where's Cardenas and Reese?" "Oh, they left last night." So by the time I get back to San Jose State, my professor of military science drags me in. He says, "Cadet, if this was wartime, that's you left your post. I could have you shot." And from there, it spiraled out of control. School wasn't for me. I was having a hard time, and ultimately my grades got to the point where they kicked me out. Mm-hmm. And when you get kicked out of school, they kick you out of the program. Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning of my dad and I not speaking a single word for probably 4 years.
Not one word.
Not one word. I'd come home, and my dad would say to my mom, "Hey, tell your kid."
Oh, you mean you lived with him and he didn't speak to you?
Yeah, I was living there. I was coming back from college before I moved away, or even if I came by to visit after I moved out, "Hey, tell your kid so and so." And it was a tough time, because I think at that point in my life, now that I think about it, I wish I'd have had a better relationship, because there's probably some really good lessons I could have learned when I was in my 20s.
Sure.
That I could have avoided some pain and mistake.
So you're 22 to 26?
Yeah, about
right
that.
In there?
Yeah.
So did the voice of, or did the words of, "He's my son, he's going to be a bum," did that start to then like grow hair? Like, was it sitting there like a little monster?
I don't know. I guess if I wanted to be a victim, I guess I could.
Yeah. Were you? Did you take that role?
Being a bum?
No. A victim. How did you process it? Because we do fall into victimhood. We fall into victim and villain.
Okay, it's funny you bring that up, because I did bring. I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
My dad was probably one of the first people that I knew of, anyways. And I said, as I said earlier, I think he was the originator of the email thread, because he would write letters to everybody, and before he would send them, he'd go down to the Rexall store and make copies. These are a copy of a letter he sent to his best friend Bob down in the desert.
Down in the desert where
he grew up.
Okay. And
my sister sent this to me a few years ago, and I really had no idea this is how he felt about it. But I'll read this part of what he came to say about me. I'll start with what he said about my brother. And I'll just write in here. "This kid of mine, the oldest, who took off on me 11 years ago," I think I might have touched on it a little bit. My brother disappeared, and we haven't seen him for 40 years.
40?
Oh, easily.
Disappeared.
Just disappeared. So my dad mentioned that in this letter. He says, "He took off 11 years ago. I feel I did something wrong somewhere down the line. However, at the same time, I must have done something right with my other two. I have noticed that my youngest was tolerant toward me regardless how I treated him. But I was resentful as hell for screwing up his education and getting kicked out of the ROTC program. His tolerance towards me woke me up, and it caused me to come into line with my relationship with him. He is a precious kid, and I regret now the years that we had, those many years of personal differences."
Wow.
Kind of gives me a chill just thinking about it. But at the same time, I think, God dang it, we wasted a lot of time.
Yeah.
We wasted a lot of time.
Yeah.
It was only when I met Diana and got married that I was forgiven. Mm-hmm. And then when you give them grandkids, I hit the jackpot. I hit the jackpot.
And so he had time with your kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he was a good grandfather.
Oh, he was the best.
Yeah.
Papa was the best. He loved his kids. I remember when Sean was born, and he came into the room, and Diana was there, had Sean, my oldest, obviously in her arms, and my dad, being this guy who always was writing and thinking, pocket full of pens and papers, and Diana says, "You want to hold your grandkid, Papa?" And he's, "Oh yeah, you can take all this stuff out and get ready." And it was like this moment, and tears coming down his eyes.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was phenomenal.
Really?
It was phenomenal.
What was the reconciling moment like for you and him? Like, do you remember that moment or the era?
It probably had to be when Diana and I eloped. I mentioned earlier to you, and you and I have had these conversations before, where I feel like I'm a kind of a failed Catholic, and my mom was a Protestant converted to Catholicism, and my dad grew up as a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this is the 80s. There were no cell phones and all that kind of stuff. So I moved in with Diana in that little Rio Vista place.
That's where I met you.
And the coward that I was at the time, I wrote my mom a note. I said, "Dear Mom, want to let you know that Diane and I moved in together. This is my address. This is our phone number. And you need to get a hold of me. Here I am." A couple days later, phone rings. It's my mom. It's like a Thursday night, I think. Yeah, it was a Thursday night. And she says, "Son, I didn't raise you that way." Catholic guilt.
Through the phone.
Through the phone, and hung up the phone and looked at Diana, and I said, "You know what? She's right. You're the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Let's get married." And that, well, as you well know, that following Saturday, we, the whole next week, we planned it. Your wife was involved. She was probably the only person that knew, besides the two of us. And we went down to Carmel, got married. We had, she had a wedding dress. I had a tuxedo. We had a little wedding cake. We had the goblet that said, congratulations, as if we had a full-on wedding.
Sure.
Afterwards, we walked into the bar at the Highland Hotel and made this thing our head table. Nobody knew us. They're playing My Funny Valentine. That's our song now. And then afterwards, we went into one of those big telephone booths because again, no cell phones. I mean, the telephone booth was as big as a room. And we called my mom and dad to tell them we had eloped. And my mom was very disappointed.
Oh, she wasn't there.
She wasn't there. Wow. Very disappointed. And I kind of hung up the phone and thought, God dang. Okay, that's all right.
Yep.
By the time we get back to the room, there's a message on my phone from my mom saying, "I don't know what I was thinking. We're so happy for you.
Oh, wow.
Come see us when you get back." So the minute I walk in the house, my dad walks up to me for the first time and shakes my hand, says, "Congratulations, son." And that was the moment from that point forward that I think all things were forgiven.
Wow.
Yeah. All things were forgiven.
A mystery. The things that people hold so sacred and important.
Well, he wanted for us. And as we talked when we were out together not too long ago, regrets, right? What we want to done. I do kind of regret not going down that military path.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And had I done that, what would our lives have been different? Mm-hmm. Of course, then you worry about would I have met Diana and had my kids, all that kind of stuff.
All that.
So the path you choose are just that.
Right.
What did you do?
That must have been some moment. Handshake, eye to eye. Were you eye to eye with your dad, or was he?
Yeah. Oh, no, he was a little shorter than me.
Okay.
For a guy who you say was a hero, you mentioned, and he was. My dad, Distinguished Service Cross, Bronze Star, Silver Star, Purple Heart 4 times. Mm-hmm. Decorated, probably had 20, 30 medals from different countries. One of my favorite ones from him was a plaque that he had on his office wall that he got from his command in Vietnam. He was Father Dropkick. Not because he liked football or soccer, because if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, he was going to drop kick your ass.
Father Dropkick. Good Catholic name. Father Dropkick. Hey, there's this thing called a blessing that a lot of us men strive for from our fathers, that we are enough. We have what it takes. Mm-hmm. We're good. We're good boys and good men. Yeah. I hear through your story a couple of times where in my mind, and I'm listening through that filter, that's a blessing. That letter is a blessing. Like that's a affirmation between him and his friend that you didn't even know existed. Mm-hmm. The handshake. Mm-hmm. How would you describe what a blessing is?
Something I wasn't expecting in a lot of ways. I find that in my daily life, things happen and it's, wow, that's a blessing.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
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 So surprising.
Yeah. Something good.
Yeah.
Something good.
And would you say your dad has blessed you, gave you blessings?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. What was an early blessing?
I'm not sure how to put that into words, Mark.
Okay.
and I'm not sure the blessing was from him more than it was from me to him, or just the fact that I had become a father, and I think that's what he wanted. He
More than anything.
Yeah, he wanted grandkids. You know, he did. In fact, he wanted more. He wanted more than just 3 of us. My older brother, my sister, and myself. And I just found this out last night or night before last when I was with my sister, that he had mentioned to my mom that he wanted to have one more kid. Tried to talk her into it, and said, "Look, you know, now the other ones are older. They can help raise this one." So I think it was me giving him the kids was kind of the blessing of our lives, the 2 of us.
Right. That's just unbelievable. The story, I can feel it. I can feel the grit in it, and what a great man. What's it feel like to be raised by a great man, even with distance and seasons of hardship? I mean, you sit here and explain who your dad was, and the medals and the honor and the character, and he's a letter writer, and he's got all this going. What's that feel like?
It can be intimidating. In fact, I was on a job site with one of my associates, and we were on a military base. And I have an affinity for the military. Anybody who wants to put their life down like that, and even if you're not in combat, to give up your individuality for a greater good is something else. So I was telling him a bit of the story. We're standing there in the parking lot waiting to get into the facility, and I was telling him, you know, because I like to brag about my dad and his medals and such. And he looked at me and he says, "What happened to you?"
So it's intimidating.
It's hard to live up to. It's in all kinds of ways. I'm not the man that he was, in the sense that although his world was fairly small when we lived in San Leandro, he had lots of people that he knew and admired and loved him as well. But it wasn't like there was a steady stream coming to our house. He wasn't that way. In fact, he never wanted to impose on people. Whenever we would visit family, we'd never stay at their houses.
Yeah. Humble.
He put us in a hotel and that kind of thing. So it's just hard. It was hard. It's been hard to live up to that.
Still.
Well, I mean, this is a man who fought for what he thought was right and was willing to put his life on the line for it. I mean, after the first Purple Heart, I think a lot of guys would have had second thoughts about going back in and getting the 3 more.
Sure.
So I don't think I can ever live up to what my dad was. I don't think I can.
See, I hear your story, and I hear stories like this a lot. And it sparks like an envy and a jealousy and a grief, because I wish I had that. That there's this great proverb, 3,000-year-old statement. It says it's only right that a boy should be proud of his dad. And there's a settling, there's a security that comes with a legacy that you're proud of, even if it's intimidating. And so I sit here and listen to that, and because I don't have those stories, that DNA in me, that legacy, and it leaves a void. And so I just see who you are and the fight in you and the honor in you, and I see so much of your dad in you. And hearing your story, I can see now where it comes from. And how do you think that's transferred to your kids, your 3 sons?
I think you should probably ask them that question, because I'm pretty sure they think I'm a nut.
All 3 of them, because they're all 3 so different.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think they all have that opinion of me, that I'm a bit on the quirky side. I mean, you know, as you've seen me transform my life a little bit over the last few years, physically trying to, you know, change, because I want to live till I'm 100.
Sure.
And not just live till I'm 100. I want to be healthy. I want to ride my bicycle.
Vibrant,
I want to get up every day. I want to be at the gym. I want to be living in our house, no medication. And I tell Diane all the time, I said, look, you know, you got to be able to pick me up, and I got to be able to pick you up. Physically. You know, that sort of, and they think I'm a nut for it. You know, my 4 a.m. wake ups and in bed at 8, and you know, I tell them nothing good happens after 9 o'clock. So what's the point?
You
know, and all that comes
from that.
Yeah.
And they think you're crazy.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
you think they respect it, or do they push away from it?
Oh no, I do. I do. I mean, I even get past the, you know, the NFR comment from Diana. That's my nickname. NFR.
What's it?
No Fun Robert.
No Fun Robert.
I swear.
That's so funny. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. No Fun Robert. Because, you know, to me, it's I've been down that road. I'm tired. I got a day to get up to.
Yeah.
So,
How would you describe what legacy is? What's a legacy?
well, it could be, I'd like to think of legacy as something good, something that you pass on. Either it be, a character trait or a memory or some wealth or something to those behind you. Yeah.
I hear you rewriting, especially in the last 4 years of you getting healthy, physically healthy, and being focused on who you want to be.
Yeah.
And that, in a sense, you're rewriting your story, the
Exactly.
second half of your life. What's been the challenge in that rewrite? Because we all have to come to a place where we rewrite our stories.
Right. Personal development, I don't think is easy.
No.
It really isn't.
No.
And it takes a lot of work. And it's funny. I was driving down here. I was thinking about. I was actually listening to Jack Canfield's Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love him. I love listening to him. And I was kind of thinking back to when I was younger, what moved me and what got me to a place. And just as an example, okay, here I am. I'm just before high school. Just prior to that, I think I might have mentioned to you before, when we were in Ethiopia, I went through a scenario where I was paralyzed from the neck down. Had to fly me to Kenya, blood transfusions, this, that, and the other. We come back to the States. We're in San Leandro now. My dad's about ready to go to Vietnam. Something happens to me to the extent that I can't walk. And I go into Oak Knoll Hospital. I'm there for 30 days. They're trying to figure out what it is. This is 1972, give or take. I literally am in the hospital for 30 days. The day before, my dad actually left for Vietnam, and then I'm admitted into the hospital. And so at the end of that 30 days, they finally said, oh, you got juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And I was on this protocol of like 12 aspirin a day.
Aspirin.
Yeah. Bengay on my hip every day, trying to get through the pain. And so now I'm in middle school. High school comes, and all my buddies are going in to play football. And my doctors at that point said, no, you shouldn't do that. And I kind of wanted to. And so I did. So I found a doctor who said, no, you need to be active. So I go to high school, and there's this kid there. His name is Scott Bream, Air Force cadet, eventually kind of guy. And I looked at him and I thought, man, that guy's like a Greek god. I want to be like that guy.
Greek god.
A Greek god. He was a wrestler and a football player. I'm going to do everything I can to break all of his records. And I did. Every one of them. And I sometimes push myself back to that point to where when I think, okay, how am I going to get to this? And I got to dig deep and find what was it then that I'd be out on a Friday night running at midnight, and my buddies would be throwing beer bottles at me as they drove around coming back from a party.
Yeah, and you were running midnight.
And
Yeah.
So I don't know, those are sort of things that drive me.
Those come from your dad. That comes from, I'm leaving Mexico, I'm going to America.
Absolutely.
That comes from that's a legacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and with my dad, I mean, I mentioned that he got his GED and goes into the War College, gets his commission. He barely speaking English when he got his battlefield commission, yet he stayed at it and graduated from Cal State Hayward with a degree in English.
Unbelievable. And he's writing letters. He's writing letters prolifically.
All the time. And a ferocious reader, which I'm not. I wish I had that trait of his. He read all the things, everything.
Were you there when your dad passed?
Yeah, it was a real horrible time. He, towards the end, as it is for so many, they eventually said cause of death was from leukemia, and that got brought on by Agent Orange. And so I remember being at Kaiser Hospital with him a couple nights before, and then I forget this. I don't forget, but the chronology is a little bit confusing because it's like I remember bringing him home from Kaiser. He was going to go into hospice, and I pulled him out of the chair and I threw my back out. Like it felt like, oh, gee, something happened there, right? And just something wasn't right. The next morning, I'm waking up, And I'm downstairs in our house there on Barclay and working. And I get up and I fall immediately to the floor. I am like out. I mean, I'd thrown my back out in the worst way. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the littlest thing.
Sure.
Pick up a Kleenex and you're out, right? And my neighbors had to come pick me up to get me to the doctor. To get out of the house, I had to come from upstairs, downstairs, all that bit, right? So I get down to the hospital and I get the call from my sister that my dad's passing. And I barely make it in time to see him.
Wow.
Before he passed. At our home in San
At your
Leandro.
home?
Yeah.
Wow. And did he have any, was he cognitive? No.
And if I have a regret about that scenario, the night before when my back was sort of hurting, a little bit, and I'd gone to see my dad then that night, I'd had a couple drinks of wine to kind of settle myself. And if I didn't say this before, but my dad never drank, never smoked. When he married my mom, he was 31, she was 18. Both of them were virgins. And so it's bothered me ever since then that the last memory my dad probably has is that he smelled alcohol on my breath.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. He actually said that. He said, "Oh, son, you're not drinking. You're drinking." And,
Oh, really?
oh, he had no idea back then that I was drinking.
Yeah.
My sister either. My sister was the same way. My dad was strict that way.
Yeah.
It was.
So you hid stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But but growing up, I wasn't this rowdy. In fact, I didn't really get crazy until I was 21. But up until that point, I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I look back at that moment in time and kind of think, God,
could have redone that.
Yeah.
How do you handle regret like that?
More drinking. Spent the next 30, 40 years drinking more than I should.
Yep.
To the extent that I lost my gallbladder. Yeah.
Do you think that stems from regret?
Yeah.
Shame?
Oh, absolutely.
How deep do you think, because I have a whole chapter on shame.
Yeah.
And I'm just awakening to I'm calling it the tap root of a tree. Every tree has a main root. It's called the tap root. When it's a baby tree, it just starts sending down that tap root for stability and everything else. And I feel like so many of us, the tap root is shame. Some of us, it's anger. Some of it's anxiety. Some of it's depression. Fear, huge. How much do you think shame drove your regret?
Oh, more than I could probably put a number on, or quantify. Yeah.
And so you chose to drink it.
Oh yeah.
How has it? I call it a leak. Shame is a leak. Some things like anger are a spill. It spills out of the cup when you're bumped. Anger spills, and some things are splashes. It splashes all over the group.
Yeah.
I think shame is a constant. When you get those cheap paper cups with hot coffee and the seam they forgot to glue, and it just kind of dribbles all over the joint.
Right.
That's to me what shame does. It shows up in so many areas and it tracks around, and it's just this annoyance thing that has a lot of faces on it. And how would you feel regret? Because I've heard a couple times now, just in your story, regret of military. There's regret, and as men that are sensical with vision and dreams and want to change our life and take control of our life, drive the bus, that regret and shame can really trickle in a lot of areas.
Paralyzing.
Yeah.
It's paralyzing. And in a lot of aspects of my life, it's been paralyzing. And sometimes I wonder how I got through it. I really do. I really do. It was not easy.
And so the drinking didn't help.
Oh, heck no.
No. Now that the drinking has under control.
Oh, yeah.
It's taproot. Like, how do you ever see it trickling any other way? Regret, shame.
Yeah, sure. My recent change in occupation.
Yep. Yep.
Not that
Sure.
There was no drinking involved.
Right.
It was really one of those that, wow, I should have done something a little bit differently. I wish I had done this and not said that, and
So it resonates louder, I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So a small mistake that maybe somebody that doesn't wrestle with shame or regret, just, okay, that was a mistake, boo-boo, let's do this again, where it kind of resonates loud.
Yeah, and that's, even at 65, I'm still trying to find out ways in which to put that away, kind of, compartmentalize it to,
Yeah.
But I did that before, and that was with
see, that's
drinking.
when you put it away, I think, I'm learning right now. Shame is something I don't have a grip on. I figured a few things out, but that's one I haven't. And let's spend a minute, if you don't mind, talking about that. When you compartmentalize it and try to put it away, I think that puts that monster in the closet, and that monster grows.
Oh, it comes back as shingles.
Yeah.
I've struggled with shingles almost my whole life. And
Amazing.
now-
I was
and now
bedridden with shingles.
Pardon me?
I was bedridden with shingles.
Oh, it started when I was in college.
Really? I didn't know that.
And then stress would bring it out, and it'd be all the side of my face, and it would feel like an ice pick in my head.
Remember when I had it inside my ear canal? Do you remember that?
I do. I had
So-
empathy for it because it's painful.
Unbelievable. So that stuffing and that putting that away, it still trickles through that stuff. How are you learning, or are you learning, to process it and not put it away? I think the key is to process it.
Funny story about that. So, as we move on and we try to grab onto whatever we can to help us. And I've come to you before. I remember sitting with you at the church, and you handed me that Bible. And,
Yep.
And I've tried to do it and tried to do it and tried to do it and tried to. And I'm not giving up. I'm trying to do it, but so
Good Catholic boy.
Not very, but yes.
I try to do it. That's so funny. You describe it as it. I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
Whatever it is.
So I, trying to, figure out those things that I, internalize through meditation.
Yep.
So, I buy this Calm app.
Yep.
Calm.com.
Sure.
And I tell Diana, I'm doing it, and she says, I don't think it's really working. So you don't understand. I just had my 1100th session. Which I think is really wrong about that Calm app, because all of a sudden it's a competition. You've got 5 days in a row.
Yeah, it's stressing you out.
Yeah, it's stressing me out. And then I got my wife saying to me, I don't think it's working. I think I got to try something different.
She said that here at the 4th of July party.
Yeah, did you?
Robert, tell them about how calm you are in your meditation. It's not working.
I like to think I am, but
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking inside out.
That's so funny. So when you meditate, what's the focus of the meditation?
Yeah, I'm struggling with it.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with it. I mean, I'm listening to it. I'm doing the Wim Hof, the cold exposure, and the meditation, and trying to figure out, okay, where am I going with it? I haven't had that light bulb moment yet. I really haven't.
There's this thing in the Bible. It's in the It book.
Failed Catholic, what can I tell you?
It's okay. So this ex-murderer, Paul, who is like in this redemptive state, he says, hey, don't forget that the Lord has asked us to cast all of our anxiety and troubles and worries on him. That word cast is when you set down a set of luggage, you walk away from it. Like you left your luggage at the airport, and I don't have no name tag on it, and I don't want to hear about it no more. And so I find a lot of guys struggle in meditation with that same reality you're struggling with, where that meditation app kind of owes Jesus some royalties, because Jesus always says, when you're anxiety, when you have any problems, whatever, talk to me about it. And it's called prayer. And he invented the meditation. So try with the app in those states, just saying, hey, if you're real, Lord, this is some bullshit right here. I'd like to see this go away. I'd like to see you walk me through this and watch what happens. I'm being sincere.
I am listening.
I'm being dead sincere.
I'm listening.
Because there's a few things I've learned, and that's a 100%er. It's never not worked. My buddy, Ron Ritchie, today's his birthday. On our inaugural podcast, the dearest man in my life was his birthday, and he used to have the saying, because Jesus says, worry about nothing, pray about everything. He would say, why would you pray? Just worry about it. That's what we've been doing for 60 years. Like, how's that working? And so try that in your meditation. Say, hey, Lord, if you're real.
It's interesting how you brought that up about, because I sometimes when I'm in this process of doing these things and listening to the Jack Canfield, as I said before, I kind of think to myself, isn't this the false prophets, so to speak?
I think
because I struggle with the Bible.
Yeah.
I struggle with that belief.
You should.
I do.
You
I
should.
do. And I've not been able to breach that
Yeah.
65 years later. I'm hoping by 100 I'll have it done.
I believe the intent of the scriptures are to struggle. There's a moment in this guy named Jacob's life where he wrestles with man, himself, and God. And he walks with a limp after the wrestling match. And that's an example. It's a struggle. Struggle with me. Struggle with the text. Struggle with honor. Struggle with... We're in a culture where we run from struggle. The joy of living is successfully navigating the struggle.
Yeah.
We don't when you compartmentalize it, when you numb it, there's no freedom in that.
No.
And your
good.
dad went through the struggles and found a lot of freedom with 4 Purple Hearts, not because of the award, but the struggle is what made him.
Yeah.
And we're in a culture where, and that's what you're learning with the cold showers and the struggle of taking care of yourself. Well, emotionally and spiritually, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And so, okay, let's take this thing on. Let's put some glue on that cup and forget the trickle and cut the taproot pot and transplant that tree and start rewriting our new stories emotionally. Because the emotions are what takes down the body. You know?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We're focused on supplements while we stuff the dragon back in the closet of the thing that's really going to take us out.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's going to take us out.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I hope that we can sit down with the once again. And try that, though, in your meditation. I'm for everything. Meditation helps. I've never seen it not help, but does it heal?
Right.
There's a difference between helping and healing.
Right.
And that's the difference I'm speaking of.
Right.
Tell me about, last question. I believe there's a lot of power in dreams. You now have a dream to live to 100. You have a dream to be able to carry your wife or her carry you. Those are dreams. And I think there's a lot of power behind those dreams. I think they're gifts from the Lord. I really do think they're visions and they're things that call us forward. What's your dream besides those right now with your boys? What are the dreams you have regarding your sons?
I worry about them a lot. I do because I think back to when I was a kid and my mom takes me to a movie, a double feature. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. I thought I might have, but I'm probably 12 or so. We're living in Alameda. She says, let's go see a double feature. And my mom I love her. She was the best, but she had a twisted sense of what was appropriate and to take your kids to. Like she took us to all the horror movies, the scariest, the better. So this one Saturday afternoon, she takes me to see this double feature, Nostradamus and Soylent Green.
I don't know what those are.
Nostradamus, the French prophet who had the quatrains, who predicted all of the things that are supposed to happen that are typically going to be bad. And so here I am, 12 years old, looking at all these bad things that are going to be happening. And he's predicting. I'm in Soylent Green, one of my favorite cult movies, Charlton Heston's, and it's set in 2023 where the world's basically exhausted.
It's set in 2023? How ironic is that?
I know. And the whole premise of Soylent Green is that it's people, right? The world has run out of food and now they're eating people.
Okay.
So that's a Saturday afternoon double feature. And I walk out of there and I think, I'm never getting married. I having kids. What the heck's the world's coming to an end? In fact, I said that to Diana our first date on a grassy knoll at the San Leandro Marine. I told her I'm never having kids. I'm never getting married. I want to live in a penthouse.
Oh, that's so funny. The 80s. So
I just didn't think there was a future. I really didn't. And I worry about my kids today because the way the world is.
Right.
And maybe if I found that place that we talked about earlier, I'd pray more and worry less.
Yeah. And just let the Lord take care of that.
Yeah.
I think the answer is in the younger generation. I think that we're so afraid, and a lot of the younger generation, your kids, my kids, ages don't want to have kids because the world's so the way it is. But I think the answer lies within the future heroes that will be born and that will lead us through this chaos. Hopefully. Because it's not the first time the world has faced these kinds of problems.
No.
Yeah, and we're so prone to fear. Tell me about fear. Where did you learn fear? Because your dad didn't seem too fearful.
A lot of my early life centered around being in sports, and that was my life. And I remember as a senior going to the state tournament down in Pomona. I was the only guy from our school. And I think I'd lost maybe 2 matches all year. And here I'm flying down to LA with my coach. We were going to practice at UCLA. And this is a big deal.
Yeah,
This is a
big
state
deal.
tournament,
Yeah.
you know. I was an undefeated guy in my league. And I get down there and I was overwhelmed. And fear took over. And I lost my first match. And that guy lost his. So I got down to the bottom bracket. And then I lost again. And then I was out. And I think about it now. And I think, I was as good as any one of those guys.
Yeah,
But the fear of what was going to happen kept me from being who I could have been at that
Loose
moment
and
in time.
on your game. And yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you recall fear
Yeah.
having a power over you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so you're fearful now of your kids. How's that shake out?
Well, there's only so much I can do.
Yeah.
Because they got to live their life.
Yeah.
And all I can do is assist them. I don't want to be domineering.
Right.
I don't want to be, this is my kid. He's going to, fight for democracy. And here's my youngest. He's going to be a bum.
Right.
I just want the best for him.
Yeah.
And I hope they can find that in something. I don't think they have at least my oldest doesn't have the fear.
No.
Sean doesn't.
No.
Evan, probably not. Ryan, my youngest, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
More like me.
Yeah.
In fact, probably a lot like me, unfortunately.
Which is why there's probably a little bit of conflict between the two of you.
Not so much. Not so much today.
Yeah.
Not
because you're so much alike.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
I
so.
learned that the more people we have in conflict,
Yeah.
it's because they remind us of ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. What do you want your kids individually, all 3 of them, real quick, what do you want them to say about you 50 years from now?
That I loved him. Mm-hmm. I think that's the most important thing.
That you loved them?
I do. Yeah.
Well, they know you love them.
Of course.
Yeah.
But that would be it for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I need any more than
That's
that.
it.
That's it. They love me.
That's a great place.
Yeah.
Great answer. Great reality. Like, here's your dad's got all this room full of awards and medals and stuff, and what you want is for your kids to say, my dad loved us.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
They're good boys.
No, they are. They're in each in their own way, and different. They are. Yeah.
And Evan's getting married or just got married?
We just had his engagement party at the house. We had about 20-some people over. Got a chance to get with her family a little bit. They're hard to make decisions. Those kids are.
Yeah.
I call them kids, but they're late 20s. She's in her 30s, but it's hard for them to make those decisions. But yeah, hopefully in the next year or so, and see a grandkid. That'd be nice.
Ah.
Yeah.
Do they want kids?
They don't say that.
Yeah.
They don't say that. But I'd like to have one grandkid. I'd like to chance to spoil one. Maybe have a do-over. Do a few things differently.
Wow. Well, Robert, I want to just thank you for being a great dad.
No, thank you.
And a great son. You are a great dad and were a great son. And I say were because both your parents are on the other side now.
Yeah.
And one of the great honors in my life was be able to be there with your mom on her last few days. That was a really special time for your...
Tell that story more times than you can imagine.
Well, it was an honor. And it was it's beautiful to be part of any family where there's so much love.
Yeah.
And your dear sister, just lovely family.
Yeah.
And I've always looked up to you.
Oh, Mark.
And thanks for being a part of Finding Dad and the story. And again, the most important thing is thanks for being a great son and a great dad.